The Zodiac Killer. Who was he? The Zodiac Killer was one of the most notorious criminals of the late 60s and early 70s. This guy terrorized Northern California with a series of murders, and he always managed to stay one step ahead of the cops. But there's something really strange about this case. The Zodiac Killer taunted the police and the media with these cryptic codes and ciphers that he claimed would reveal his identity. So here's the question. Did they ever find out who he was? Let's dive into the enigma of the Zodiac Killer. Before we get into the codes and ciphers, let me give you some background on the case. The Zodiac Killer is believed to have operated in Northern California between 1968 and 1969. During this time, he claimed to have killed at least 37 people, although only 5 of those murders were ever officially linked to him. The victims were mostly young couples who were parked in secluded areas. The Zodiac Killer would approach them, identify himself, and then either shoot or stab them. What made this guy different from other serial killers was the fact that he sent letters to the press. In these letters, he would brag about his crimes and even taunt the police. He also included these weird codes and ciphers, which he said would reveal his identity if deciphered. The first cipher was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle, and the second was sent to the San Francisco Examiner. These ciphers were written in a strange code where each letter of the alphabet was represented by a number. For example, A1, B2, C3, and so on. Using this code, the first cipher translates to, "I like to hunt people." And the second one translates to, "I write these words for you with blood." Pretty creepy, right? Even though the police had these ciphers, they didn't know what they meant. They needed help from an outside agency. So they turned to the FBI for assistance. The FBI brought in one of their best cryptographers, but even he couldn't crack the code. Finally, in December of 1969, a former police officer named Donald Hardin broke the code. He was working for the San Francisco Chronicle at the time, and he just kind of stumbled upon the solution while experimenting with typewriters. And get this, he cracked both ciphers within a matter of hours. Can you imagine how frustrating it was for the authorities to have this guy casually crack the code when they couldn't? So what did the ciphers mean anyway? The first one, "I like to hunt people," was actually a boastful message from the killer. And the second one, "I write these words for you with blood," was a threat to the public. But things were about to get even weirder because the Zodiac Killer wasn't done sending ciphers. In 1970, the Zodiac Killer sent another cipher to the San Francisco Chronicle. This one was a bit more complicated than the last two, but it followed the same basic idea. Each letter of the alphabet was represented by a symbol instead of a number. This cipher was tougher to crack, but eventually a high school teacher named William Reedy figured it out. With the help of a friend, he discovered that each symbol actually represented a letter of the alphabet. For example, this symbol stood for A, this one stood for B, and so on. Once they deciphered the code, they realized that the Zodiac Killer was taunting the police again. The message read, "This is the mark of Cain, my blood brother." And below that, he added, "You can't stop me, because I have the mark of Cain on me now, and my blood brother has the other half." So what exactly did this mean? Nobody is 100% sure, but most people believe that the killer was referring to himself as Cain, the biblical figure who killed his brother Abel out of jealousy. This would make his accomplice, or possibly even his next victim, Abel. But that's just a theory. We don't really know for sure. The thing is, this wasn't the only cryptic message the Zodiac Killer sent. He continued to taunt the police and the public with all sorts of bizarre messages throughout his reign of terror. For example, in one letter, he drew a clock with the hands pointing to 12:05 and wrote, "Have you seen my 12:05? What the heck does that even mean?" Well, the theory is that he was referring to his murder weapon, maybe a gun or a knife. Basically, he was saying something along the lines of, "Did you see my present for you?" Then there was the Halloween card. Yeah, apparently the Zodiac Killer sent out actual Halloween cards to various news organizations. On one of these cards, he drew a creepy face with a mustache, and the caption read, "I was thinking of you when I slit her." Even after all these years, we still don't know what he means by her. Maybe it was a nickname or something. Who knows? But let's go back to this whole idea of the Zodiac killer having a blood brother. Could there be someone out there who helped him commit these crimes? Well, it's possible, but there's no solid evidence to support that theory. It's more likely that the killer was just making stuff up as he went along. Remember, he was a taunter. He wanted to freak people out as much as possible. So he probably just came up with these cryptic messages to confuse and terrify the public and the police. That being said, there are some theories that suggest the Zodiac killer wasn't acting alone. Some people think he had accomplices, while others believe he was part of some kind of secret society. But again, it's all speculation. We just don't have enough evidence to say for sure. But let's talk about the victims. The Zodiac killer was known to stalk young couples who parked in isolated areas, especially in the Presidio of San Francisco and the Marine Headlands. His preferred method was to approach the couple, identify himself as a police officer or a member of the military, and then demand their car keys. He would drive them to an isolated spot and then either shoot or stab them. After the attack, he would take their car and leave the bodies behind. There were 5 murders that were officially linked to the Zodiac killer, but it's believed that he was responsible for many more. One of the most famous victims was David Faraday and his girlfriend, Darlene Ferrin. They were found shot to death in a secluded area of the Presidio. Another victim was Paul Stein, a taxi driver who picked up the killer in San Francisco and was later found stabbed to death in his cab. These murders shocked the community and sparked a massive manhunt. But the killer was never caught. Throughout his reign of terror, the Zodiac killer taunted the police with letters containing ciphers and cryptic messages, but he was always one step ahead of them. To this day, nobody knows for sure who he was. There have been tons of theories, and many people have come forward claiming to be the killer or to have information about his identity. However, none of these claims have been verified, and the case remains unsolved. Some people even claim that the Zodiac killer is still out there somewhere. Now, I personally find this case fascinating. I mean, the whole idea of someone being able to fool the police for so long is just mind-boggling. Plus, the fact that he taunted them with these cryptic messages just adds to the creepiness factor. If I were working on this case, I would definitely focus on the ciphers and the letters. They have to hold some kind of clue as to the killer's identity. Maybe there's some hidden meaning behind the seemingly random taunts. Who knows? I also think it would be important to look into the victims and the circumstances surrounding their deaths. Perhaps there's some connection between them that the police haven't uncovered. The thing is, I'm just a guy in a chair with a laptop. I'm not a professional investigator. And despite all the theories and speculation, the Zodiac killer's identity remains a mystery. Who do you think was behind these terrifying crimes? Do you believe the Zodiac killer was a lone wolf, or was he part of something bigger? Let us know your thoughts. Anyway, thanks for watching.